Can you go to jail for not paying your rent? Well, Baltimore City landlords in Maryland say definitely yes, but the company criticized most for this practice is the Kushner Company. And that's not only because the previous CEO of Kushner Company was Jared Kushner, but because his company is known for having sought out the most civil arrests to collect debt. Joining me now to talk about this is Tessa Hill Aston, president of the Baltimore City NAACP. Tessa, so more than, the way I see these numbers, more than 1,000 legal actions in Maryland were filed by Kushner affiliates, and court documents say 20 have been detained. Tell us about this story. It's incredible. And again, this is not a story anybody's talking about.
Yes, it certainly is, and we're just starting to hear a lot about it, I guess because of him being Trump's son-in-law. A lot of people will go to court, and the average tenant, they don't go to court with knowledge of what their rights are. They go to court looking to try to see if they can pay their rent that they owe in order to stay in place. Unfortunately, they don't have a lawyer and they don't have an advocate. An advocate cannot stand up. So what happens is that a lawyer with a lot of knowledge or a representative from the Kushner company will come in and talk louder and faster than the tenant, and they win. And then they get evicted. Now, if that doesn't happen, if the person doesn't show up for some reason, and there's lots of reasons why they don't, 2 or 3 years or even 6 months later, they could be at a new address or at work, and someone will come, a sheriff will come and detain them, and they're not sure what they're being locked up for, and it's because they owe maybe 200, 300, 400, and not a lot of money. It's not like thousands of dollars. It's usually less than 500, and they get locked up and detained in court, in jail, and then they have to pay to get out, and then still go to court for these debts that Kushner's company is filing on them. So it's a terrible situation for people to be in.
Well, okay, so, yeah, so, Tessa, we used to call this debtor's prison. We did away with debtor's prison in the United States because we don't throw people in prison because they can't pay bills. But that's the way it used to be in the United States, and then we did away with debtor's prison. But here you have this thing called body attachment, and body attachment is where they simply go out and get, and they've issued over 100 of these by judges in Baltimore, where they've gone out and actually grabbed the people, brought them into debtor's prison, and then Kushner says, well, we're not going to let them out till we find a way to get our money. What you have here is you have the powerful just trampling all over the powerless. I mean, if he didn't want to rent to that person, then he doesn't have to rent. If he doesn't want to be in this business and understand there's risk to the business, you're not always going to get paid, then don't get into the business. But here, this has been turned upside down. It's on its head. And it's amazing to me that Baltimore, of all places, is so all in on this. What's your take?
Well, I think it's terrible that Baltimore, because right now it's unfortunate, but for the past year I've seen documentation that Baltimore is in the top cities in 5 or 10 cities, and #1 maybe of evictions. And this is one of the situations that is affecting us, and it happens to people of all walks of life. There's been some professional people who have gotten caught up in this, and a lot of times it's a single female with children who cannot afford to pay, or something happens to her life. But no one should be evicted or have a body attachment because of rent or because of a debt. There's so many resources, but most people do not know what to do in a timely fashion. Some women don't even know to put their money in escrow. And even when I've seen people have their money in escrow, when they go to court, the judges have still favored the landlord because they're slicker. And what happens is that the tenant gets the raw end of the deal, and it happens all the time, and it's happening too much in Baltimore. I'm hoping, along with myself, with the NAACP and some other lawyers and some advocates, that when January gets here and our legislative session starts in Annapolis, that we can go to the governor and go to the legislative body of the senators and delegates and ask them to put in a bill to try to do some adjustments with this, because it's totally unfair to the working class people.
Tessa, let me put this in perspective for you, okay? We just got done, we just got through doing a story on Dow Chemical, making a product that's causing brain damage in children. We see it every day, pharmaceutical companies killing people by the thousands because they keep a product out on the market that they know is defective and it's causing harm. We see Wall Street, stole $8 trillion from the American economy. Who went to prison there?
Yes.
Nobody. These folks, if you're dressed up in a three-piece suit and you have a Rolex watch on and you happen to be in some big tower on Wall Street, you don't go to prison. But here we have people being arrested, literally arrested, and thrown in jail because Kushner, they haven't paid Kushner his rent. I mean, that is the dichotomy of where we are in the U.S. today. There is this double standard of justice. Can you imagine somebody being thrown in jail because they didn't pay their rent and having a police officer go up and attach them by taking them into possession and taking them into a jail because they didn't pay the rent? But we have these cats that are killing people by the thousands all over this country. They're stealing money by way of every kind of scam, stealing from mom and pop. That we have all of this problem in the U.S. where we have this double standard. And this story to me really lands that double standard. What is your take on that?
I agree with you 100%, because what happens, let's think about what happens the day that that person has a body attachment and is taken from their home or from their job. Then that means they go to jail, they have a record, they probably will lose their job, because if they don't get out of jail within a timely fashion and don't show up to work, their children are at home, and then some family members or friends have to jump in. It's a whole rippling effect of what happens to that person to put them in this kind of situation for just for a rent debt and a body attachment. It's deplorable, and it happens too much, and it's not worth it. They're paying $150 to fill out the forms to get this done, a measly $150 to have someone go serve a body attachment. And what happens is that a lot of the property that Kushner gets, he's being subsidized by government funds. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, government,
right.
HUD, and it's for poor people. And that's deplorable that he's getting government funds to have poor people or low-income people live in his property, and then he's going to do more damage, and he's getting extra benefits and tax reduction, and then he's going to take them to court because he doesn't get $300.
Well, Tessa, it's worse than that. If you really want to land this, you know what? He has the government working for him. In other words, he's getting all these other benefits, tax benefits, subsidy benefits, you name it. And now Kushner has got the government working for him to collect his debts. And while we're attaching somebody's body and throwing them in jail, you got some cat in Wall Street that's stealing billions of dollars from mom and pop type pension programs, and nobody goes to jail the first time. I got to tell you something. I'm glad you're out there. I hope the NAACP will make this a big story. At this point, it is not a big story, and that's embarrassing. We don't see this story reported on corporate media because there's no money in it. You know, you're not in that. NAACP is not a big advertiser with MSNBC. And so because of that, it's tough for you to get these stories out. I'm glad you could come on.
That's true.
I'm glad you could come on and talk to us today, okay? And really,
thank you so much.
Keep up the great work. It's so important.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.